Welcome back. So far, we've covered some examples of the different products, and also in a previous activity, you've explored other tools and applications developed based on the various large language models. Now it's the time for you to continue to be familiar with those new products, new tools that you have not heard before in this activity. So please work within your group to collect resources if you haven't already, to make sure everyone is on the same page. The first 5 minutes, please take that to continue working on collecting different resources, learning about those new models, softwares, or those agentic workflows that we introduced briefly before. And then for the next 10 minutes, you will discuss with your group mates about the things you learned and some of the experiment maybe you've during the break, and share any lessons you learned, what strikes you the most, what seems the most relevant for institutional research or other knowledge-based production work. And if you have any follow-up plan or questions you want to discuss, and to engage with the community, feel free to share. I hope you enjoyed the discussion and learned something more, with more contextualized experiences from yourself and your group mates. Now, let's focus on an example brought by the example I have been frequently involved with, which is the vibe coding. So for vibe coding, the best part of it, to summarize it, is the one who write the code. So you are free from writing the technical code itself, and your role is more of an auditor and reviewer. So coding nowadays, as you may heard from the news or from the labor market feedback, that technical development skills like coding has a shrinking market nowadays, because a lot of the coding, the task of coding is a very classic task with a bunch of data, and it is very easy to verify. If a code can run, it runs and it corrects. If there's a bug, it's obvious there is a bug and the error message, to learn from the error message. So this has been the fastest growing area in the application of a large language model, which is building coding specific softwares and including agents, which will help you complete complicated coding tasks. And thus, as AI is able to do it, we need less human to do it. And only experienced coders will be hired, and entry level are no longer there, because AI are those entry level, and we only need experienced software developers nowadays to review the output of the coding agents. That being said, our institutional research field, some of us may be skilled in coding previously, but nowadays it may no longer be your competitive advantage anymore, as nowadays, and especially in the future, only natural language will be needed to create scripts and coding. And later you will delve and experience such powerful coding agent on your own. So in the end, we will also discuss what left for human and institutional researchers to develop, and what should we focus on for a future-proof career development and career trajectory. But this is the introduction to the current landscape nowadays in the coding specific large language model application, and the coding AI has been a powerful, performs very well kind of field. And human's role, as I mentioned briefly, are the auditors and reviewers. But not only we need to verify and evaluate the output, we also need to plan and direct the agent and direct the LLM to do the things in the correct way. So that's why experienced professionals are still needed, because they know the different steps, they know the best practices, they know how to design the solution. Although you do not need to solve the problem, dive into it with the detailed execution anymore, but you still need to design it with a good plan that distinguish the good output versus a trash out output. If you don't plan well, if you don't have enough domain knowledge, for example, data analysis is itself a domain-specific field. You may need to choose which model to use. Model here is not a large language model, but a data science model. What type of statistical model, either regression or machine learning, and which machine learning model. So you need to understand the advantages and the context of the problem at hand, the research question at hand, to select a suitable method and tell LM to do that. Although some of you may question this point, as AI is getting smarter, they may know enough about data science, the different methods, pros and cons in the future or even nowadays, but who knows the context of the problem and you know the goal of the project, that type of knowledge that sometimes might not be available on the internet for the model to learn, those type of goals is hard to find for the model. So you still have to use those knowledge, sometimes context specific and domain specific knowledge to craft a good plan and direct the LLM. You may carefully observe the performances of the coding agent and interrupt if you see it's going into a rabbit hole or a dead end, based on your knowledge and your experience from several years of doing this on your own manually. You may know better about the signals of something goes wrong, and you may have better sense of whether the output is a error or it is correct. And sometimes beyond the making sense of it based on your guess, uh, there is a recommended strategy of breaking things into smaller steps so you can set up the different checkpoints early, so you can ensure each step yields correct and accurate results before it proceeds to the next step. So carefully observing the agentic workflow is something that currently still needs humans monitoring. And then nowadays, as I mentioned, I hope human is still in control because the performance of the AI is still needs some regulation, and you still need to hold your wheel while you drive. So it's not fully automated. And the edge cases usually the AI by design it does not have enough data to get trained. So for the edge cases, for the nuances, humans still remains in control, especially if you are careful, if you are sensitive about the accuracy, you may need to set up multiple checkpoints. And this is what we've mentioned about the best practices nowadays. You still need to verify if you are very sensitive to the accuracy of the output. Setting up more checkpoints would be recommended. And by doing that, it's not only ensuring the accuracy, but also it's like opening the black box of the whole from start to end, one-stop solution. You have those small step and checkpoints, then you may have better understanding of what is the process, and you may understand what the AI and the agents are doing at each step, and you may have more peace of mind knowing that it's each step or which step it does correctly or wrong. Verify immediate results before proceeding is a good practice, especially because model performance might not be 100% correct. So before proceeding, some type of verification would still be needed. And it shows a common practice, what we call responsible AI use, which also proves that human oversight is still needed. And beyond those cautious verification steps, other benefits also include you may also learn from the AI output. Some of the method it chose or it passed might be some decision that you have to investigate further. You may agree with the method selection, for example, which statistic model to use. You may disagree, so that is an opportunity for you to further dig into those different and refresh your knowledge on those different method selection. And that is a learning opportunity for you as well. Some of the methods that AI use you may never heard of, so that's another place you need to check, as well as a learning opportunity if that is something in the future you can apply. And lastly, by dividing a task into smaller steps, first of all, your prompt would be much clearer, and then the AI would be more strictly to follow your prompt and more likely to produce something you expect it to output because you have given a more designed approach for it to produce any result. Beyond that, it's also a good documentation process, as we may have an easier recalling process if we break something down into smaller steps, and the task is now easier to understand because we have step-by-step documentation for the workflow and for future reference. Especially, this is a reusable approach. If you only need to adjust some of the steps in between, then you can copy all the other steps instead of starting from scratch all over again. So those are the reason why we recommend the step-by-step verification. That is a more cautious way than a one-stop from start to end, fully yield our control to the AI agents. But in the future, who knows? The AI agents may develop a much more, become much smarter, and we may have less checkpoints, and we can rely more on its output. But currently, step-by-step verification, especially for our sensitive data analyze and recommendations, it's still recommended. And now is the time for you to experiment and try out some of the vibe coding agents currently available. And as you may find already, this is our last activity in the worksheet. It's called Vibe Coding Gemini CLI. So I chose Gemini CLI instead of Cloud Code or Cursor or others, just because it's easy, it's convenience for a workshop. So you can use this shell.cloud.google as a web interface interaction to access your terminal or to write code in what's called the shell. And Gemini CLI is already installed and preloaded for you there. So this is a starting point for those who are more tech savvy. Feel free to, after finish this Gemini CLI in the cloud, in the web interface, feel free to install, if you haven't, install Gemini CLI in your local computer and replicate the worksheet activity here. But for now, everyone should be able to access this website and start playing with Gemini CLI. And this is a free tier. This is using the fast or the thinking or pro model, but within a quota. So you have, I believe, 15 requests per minute and 150 requests per day, something around that. So you do not have unlimited usage. So be careful and treasure the opportunity you have to play with this coding agent for this session. And that's why I provided a sample prompt for you in the worksheet that you can copy and paste. You can use this as your first prompt, and after that, you can use as many other prompts you can creatively to play with it, and you probably use up your daily limit in this session to just explore how powerful it is or how shitty it is, depending on the different task. I need to acknowledge that Gemini CLI is not the best performing coding agent, although it would still be very powerful and impressive for first-time users. If you are a first-time user, it is more than enough for you to experience it. And now, without further ado, please open the worksheet and go to the website on step one and try to follow the instruction of all the 11 steps detailed in the instruction in the worksheet. If you have any question, feel free to work in groups. The instruction is actually clear enough, I believe. And if you cannot figure out where to find such button, feel free to discuss in small groups. I believe all should be solved on your own. But if there's anything that you do need help, please let me know and we can help you. We designated 20 minutes for this activity. And after this, I will quickly go through another application of the agent, which is not a coding agent, but a local agent, very briefly. And then we will have a 10-minute break. So you can, which means you can still continue if you cannot finish this activity within this 20 minutes. Feel free to continue to working on it during that break time. You do have a 10 minutes break after this. Welcome back. I hope the activity is easy enough for you to follow and also powerful enough to get you very impressed about the strengths of the current coding agent. And note that this is not the best coding agent. It can still help you create the different transcripts I listed in the prompt. And while we can reflect this process together and share some of your observation. What is the most striking points for you, and what are the improvements you plan to do? So this can be a maybe 5 to 10 minutes sharing session within your group, but also I'd like to hear your thoughts and to share with the larger group. So for me, a reflection would be to first of all read the sample prompt I gave and see how I specified or designed the different steps. I tell the agent to follow a specific order, to first create a sample data set and then write a script to train the model, and I also indicated that they need to split the data set into training set and testing set, and I specified that I needed to use these two specific methods called lime and shop, which are two libraries and models that it need to be called and to apply to the machine learning model it trained to interpret the data. So I was very specific on the different mini tasks, like breaking it down into smaller steps. So those are the smaller steps I told the agent to do. And then I also said it need to save the images created, the visualization charts created in a specific folder, and all of those scripts need to be in the same directory. And then they need to write a markdown file for the report. So a lot of details. You might need some experience before you can create such a prompt. You may already have some manual or your own DIY process of a data analysis project like this, so you know what type of libraries specifically it need to call and what are the orders of creating different scripts. And also to create a report, it is the markdown file it need to be created to do this. So a lot of the sample prompt here illustrated why experiences and why a good design and the planning and direction are still important for agent to perform as expected. And also, I provided the planning. Now is the time to hear from you. What are the reviews? What are the improvement points that the agent failed to do, or you are not satisfied? And then it would be another several round of improvement session to interact with Gemini CLI for it to improve it. Some of the improvement notes I have noted down in step 6, for example, the visualization or using different training models, etc. So, and better documentation for the order of the scripts by adding a number as a prefix to the file name, etc. Those are some minor improvement, and maybe you are feel free to work in group to identify and to observe the different scripts it creates for you. See what are the learning points for you. What do you learn from those AI generated scripts? And also, what are the checkpoints? What are the verification you have done? And what are the hallucination, if any, you found? So those are some of the discussion points you can do within your group now. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the brief break and also the activity itself. I hope your group worked well together to reflect your experiences and your observations, as well as created some improvement plan. And you can be selective on what you want to present to the larger group. But now let's start from group 1 about any notes they want to share, any observation, challenges, improvement plan, and if you have continued your interaction with Gemini CLI to implement any of your improvement plan, or any questions for the group, feel free to raise up as well. Each group will have 3 minutes. Thank you for each group's presentation, and I hope all of us have learned from each other's experiences. And as you can see, the last section in the worksheet include a after session recommendations. Because today we've only have the chance to explore Gemini CLI due to its convenience on a web interface interaction and experiment. There are ways you can install a coding agent on your local computer, and it includes free tiers with a quota, and your data will be used for the training purpose if you are not using a paid service. And again, this is going back to our previous discussion with the subscription versus API usage cost track. So we recommend you to consider using a paid version through the API so that you can also use some cloud-based large language model as a local agent, as well as other coding agent that has a paid version. And you like what you did in the activity, you will interact it with in your terminal if you are on Mac. And on Windows, you will have a similar place to write, to interact, to write your shell code. And then this is also in the future discussion that a local agent to manage your own administrative tasks as your personal agent is some other optional resources and applications if you are interested. I've attached a few resources in the worksheet that can help you to get started to set up a local agent if you are interested. And this is really helpful, as you can see in the resources I attached there. It involves some customization of your own unique demands and workflows. It can manage your various personal tasks for you, and it usually can operate on their own without you being a good designer. But if you do have expertise, a good design will make it a smoother integration. But as always, you can ask the agent to draft the initial plan for you, and based on that, you may customize it. But as always, we need to be in the loop. We are humans in the loop, and we have a hybrid approach. Our responsibility is still guiding it, sensing the signal or when it goes wrong, and verify the outputs. Um, I attached one screenshot here as an example of the latest development called Hermes, and this screenshot is from Slack. As you can see, it's embedded in Slack. So this local agent is really powerful, and if time allows, feel free to watch the YouTube video I attached there, and also just deploy the local agent, and I hope you can have the time and passion to play with it, because it's really a very powerful tool. And for the future, as we've promised to discuss some of the future-proof career trajectory and professional development focus. So this might be the future, which is a one-stop data analysis agent is going to be developed, and it's going to be really powerful, that very few interruption from our data analyst will be needed. It may have a start to end task completion, and you may only need to verify the end result, and you may not need to break task into smaller steps because the agent is able to do that in the future very well. So at that time, you will only need to review the final results, and sometimes you to improve and to optimize the agent performance, you may still need a good design of the workflow for the task. And sometimes domain knowledge is always welcome for the specific instruction, for example, which method and approach to use. So your prompt still have a role to play there, but it's less of the detailed execution or even breaking the task into smaller steps might even be achieved and accomplished by the agent themselves. But still, we may need one human at least there for a institutional research office to provide those verification, auditing, and reviews of the result before the result can be handled to the decision-making process. So that is the future, which we call a one-stop AI agent, not only for data analysis, but also our personal life, like travel planner and other use cases that currently may consume a lot of your time to do. So from start to end, in the future, AI agent might be a real personal assistant that's really powerful to handle a lot of your work or personal life tasks. In one way, we hope that time to come soon because it's much more efficient and saves us a lot of time. Then we can use those time to focus on what matters. For institutional research, at least, it's the stakeholder relationship. It's the interpreting our results into actionable insights, and it's the engagement with the community and delivering the result to our decision-making stakeholders, building a data culture, etc. So those tasks and job responsibilities that us human need to build, relationship-oriented tasks. So those might be the only task left for us to do. And that comes to the quality assurance role also we still need to play. I believe we don't have enough time for this, but I am going to share with you a recording I posted on YouTube that covers more of a opinion piece for this. And I also have a presentation section, a speaker session in AIR forum with my co-presenter Emi that specifically talked about the different crucial quality assurance steps and aspects and discussion of ethics and opportunities. So after we've done with this workshop, I welcome you to join our ethical discussion that's less of a technical and activity style, but more of a discussion style type of speaker session, I believe on Wednesday afternoon. So we can continue our discussion there. Maybe as a quick preview, the three factors we're going to discuss are transparency, truthfulness, and interpretability. Um, and transparency is actually the motivation behind this workshop because we want some of you might understand black box as the LLM model itself, but here in this workshop, it also means the transparency of the usage of LLM, the process of using it, and all the different intimidating new development every day, new products every day around LLM-based AI. So hopefully we've achieved a part of the goal to make the usage of LLM-based AI more transparent to you. And by revealing the inside of using different LLM-based AI, hopefully we all had an opportunity to reflect the process and to enable us our IR task more efficient and sometimes more secure using the different step-by-step strategies we've shared. And also from the discussion with your group mates, hopefully you've also learned from their experiences and you've discussed some type of takeaway as where is a good checkpoint. Maybe you had your first experience using API or downloading your first open source model as we've done that in some of our activities. And then from that, I encourage you to continue engage with with the community to share your experience and support each other to reflect on our usage so that we can optimize. For example, which model is the best to do certain tasks, that type of experiences to share with each other. So we have the optimized way to use the currently available different LM-based AI. And to refine our approaches to use those softwares and tools. And making the process more transparent also benefit us by a well documented project. So it's repeatable, it's reusable and reproducible. And then share insights and lessons learned with others is the thing I encourage all of you to do, and then build a knowledge base from past AI assisted work for future work and as sometimes feedback for our as learning opportunity for ourselves. And the accuracy part is what we've discussed around how human value are now heavily in being a reviewer and providing active feedback loops to validate and correct the model outputs and to test the result against known truth when possible and focus on edge cases and those minority students that the model might not perform the best. It's always a intrinsic disadvantage for the model because it has been trained on very large data set, but those edge cases and nuances that exist in our student data might still need special attention and special handling. Especially in your prompt, you need to save that sometimes for some manual processing or semi-manual processing and refinery for the data. And that's also related to this bias detection because you, as an institutional researcher, you still need to actively check for and mitigate bias in the AI outputs, especially for our students who have less representativeness in the bigger data. And this brings us back to the point we've covered, which is this step-by-step verification, especially nowadays when agents are still creating hallucinations and it's not 100% correct. So humans still, the step-by-step version, which is kind of a semi-auto version of using agent is still recommended because multiple checkpoints ensures our responsible usage and we can identify errors early so that it prevents further bias in the output at the end. And you as a domain expert living and breathing in your campus, you have the best knowledge of the stakeholders' different needs and your culture on your campus. So you may design the task with specific goals that the LM will never know without you instructing it and directing it. So the model will not capture the full context perfectly, and you need to trust your own expertise and domain knowledge when designing the workflow and try to use some small step verification when you can to ensure the model proceed without error. And always you need to check the output so that it makes sense and it fits your campus culture and your stakeholders' demand. Lastly, is this interpretability aspect. This is beyond the transparency of the process of using a large language model. It's about understanding what the model is doing by combining the theory you have from your domain knowledge, your everyday knowledge about the context, and trusting yourself as the expertise when you are verifying the output. One of the methods we've tried that's specific for interpreting machine learning models are this sharp and lime data science methods. So those are the mathematical verification based on theories for a verification of the specific machine learning black box kind of solution for that problem. And then ultimately, we need to translate our project either a semi-manual process or a agentic process. We still need to translate the output into actionable advice. We still need to communicate with our stakeholders and help them to understand the results and the recommendations. So the interpretability is a crucial point, and maybe in the future, the most crucial point for us because the data analysis can be done by the agent. We still need to convey the result and persuade sometimes and build the relationship with our students and stakeholders, decision makers to make things happen, to make those recommendations a reality. So here it's a combination of the AI output with our expert theory and knowledge. In the end, this is a summary of the different opportunity and challenges that AI brought to us. AI, especially specifically large language model based softwares and applications, and today we've covered the agentic workflow. Those AI that we've talked about amplifies our human capabilities. It saves us time. It helps us as a personal assistant in a lot of the tasks, but it does not replace us because we still need to play a role in reviewing the outputs. What's most important is your domain knowledge. It is irreplaceable. So that means our future professional development needs to focus on gaining those domain knowledge and expertise to learn the contextual knowledge that you currently might still developing, the culture and the relationship-oriented skills that you need to develop to correctly interpret the output and also make the transition from a data finding into some action that will improve the reality and make a real impact on campus. And then responsible use of AI means you stay evolved in the loop, you stay active in verifying the AI output, and the future belongs to those who learn to work with AI. And here it is AI augmented, not AI replacing human. And thus, human skills remain central to the whole process. Thank you, and we may have some time to answer one to two questions.